So now that we know these definitions, we can start looking at some of the problems. Here are some of the common types of problems. So one of the common ones I asked you to do is simplify. Now this one basically means make smaller or reduce. It's going to be different in different situations, but for in this case, we're going to try and write the shorter method of these. So remember how I said 8 times x can be written in another way? Anytime we have multiplication in algebra, if you go back to your notes, you can write them grouped together as 8x. Yeah. Similar for this one, minus 4 times y, I can just write that as negative 4y. Yeah. This one, be a little bit careful of. If you have two negatives multiplied together, remember the rule says that if we have two negatives multiplied together, that becomes a positive value. Okay. So here I've got negative 2 times negative a, that's just going to become positive 2a. B times C, same idea, that's just BC, not the before Christ, before Common Era, I mean. Okay, A divided by 2. Now, your initial thought might be, hey, how is this actually going to get simpler? Like, what can we do with this? Not much, to be honest, but your textbook has questions like this, so I think what they're aiming for is that they just want you to write it in a different way, and the way they'd like you to write it is in this fractional form, because remember this line there, this a over 2 also means divided by. And similarly for this one, that's just m over n. We can write it as a fraction like that. Right, awesome. Cool. So that is simplifying. What about substitution? Now with substitution, if you think about substitution in sport, what are you doing, right? If you have players on a field, you've got these guys here, and then maybe Jimmy's not playing so well, so the coach wants to sub him off for Bob. So let's get Bob on there. Bob, you're over here, you're a star, that's why you get the cool pen. All right, if we are subbing them out, we're essentially like swapping them or replacing them, right? I'm going to sub you out for this guy here, okay? You're kind of doing a swap. And the same thing happens actually in mathematics. So if I have a plus 2 and I want to do a substitution, I want to substitute a equals to 3 into the following and evaluate. What I want to do here is I see that I have got a in the expression and I'm replacing that with 3. That's all I'm doing. So if I go back to this expression, I'm replacing a with 3 and I get 3 plus 2. And this word evaluate here, this generally means I want a numerical answer. So my answer should be a number, and I can see that's just going to be 5. Okay, so far so good. How do they make these a bit trickier? Well, here we've got some different expressions now. I've got a minus 5, but I do the same thing, right? I've got this a is equal to 3 thing. That's the same for all of these. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm replacing a with 3. So I've got 3 minus 5. Just be careful now. I've got a smaller number, take away a larger number. So I'm going to go into my negatives. That's negative 2. Okay. And last but not least, I've got 4a. And remember, what's our rules from before? Well, if you have two numbers and letters next to each other, it means times. So actually, I just write a little reminder of that for myself, just like that. 4 times a. Yeah. And so if I've got 4 times a, that's just replacing a with 3, so that's 4 times 3, and that's just going to be 12, okay? Oh, I've got one more. Got too excited there. 12 divided by a, that's just 12 over 4, and that's just going to be 3. All right, in this next question, we have an expression here, 3x minus 6y plus 7 minus z. And we asked the following about it, right? The first one is how many terms are there? Now remember, terms are separated by addition and subtraction. So if you have a look at the ones that are separated by that, you can see that there's just 4 of them, right? There's 4 different terms that are there. When I'm looking for the coefficient though, you're looking for the number that's in front of these things, right? So for the first one, you can see that if you look at the first term there, there's 3x, so the number in front is 3. Be careful here though, the coefficient of y, they're expecting not just 6 because there's a 6 there, but you can see there's a negative 6 in front. So negative 6 is the coefficient of y. And similarly for this one, if you look at z, it looks like there's no number there. So you may be tempted to think, maybe there is no coefficient, right? But a coefficient is a number which is in front of the expression. First of all, there's a negative here, so there's something going on. The other thing is, if you ever have an expression like a, right, it's not just a, it's actually 1 times a, right? So typically, again, mathematicians are lazy. We won't write 1a, we'll just write a, yeah? So whenever you see a letter by itself and there's just a positive or negative symbol in front, the coefficient is actually going to be 1 or -1. And it's going to be -1 in this case because there's a negative symbol there. Okay. What's the constant term? Well, it's the one that's the number that's by itself, and that's +7 over there. Okay. All right. Last but not least, a common thing, and we look at this will sorry, a common thing is to look at algebraic expressions. And algebraic expressions are powerful. They can describe a lot of different situations. Here's an example of that, right? 4 more than A. So this is converting words into maths, right? So how do we do that? 4 more than A. Well, if you're thinking about it, you're adding on 4, right? That's what 4 more than means. That's the same as saying A plus 4, okay? They can make these expressions a little bit longer. For example, 2 less than 3 divided by A. Yeah. So this is where you have to be careful with the wording. So 2 less than, when you think about less than, you think about subtraction. The order is important here though, right? If I've got 3 divided by B, right, what does that look like? That looks like this, 3 divided by B, or 3 over B. And I want 2 less than that, right? Maybe let's use a numerical example to make this a bit clearer. So for example, if I have 2 less than 5, right? What would that be? 2 less than 5. Well, 2 less than 5, I know that's just 3, but what am I actually doing? I'm actually doing 5 minus 2, which is 3. So the tricky thing is, although the 2 less than comes first, it actually comes at the end in your mathematical sentence, right? So the same thing applies here. The 2 less than comes up as minus 2 over here. And last but not least, the sum of x and y multiplied by 2. So again, the order is very important here. They're saying the sum of x and y multiplied by 2. So if I've got the sum of x and y, the sum means addition, so x plus y. If that's multiplied by 2, I guess maybe we should have a little comma there to make that a bit clearer. The sum of x and y multiplied by 2, I want this whole thing multiplied by 2, is what I was looking for. Okay, so that's a brief introduction to algebraic expressions. Hope that helps.